was quite a 5-year-old. But it was like this ninja training for kids. As each new kindergarten conquered the obstacle, they stood by Mrs. Day, and the growing crowd of 5-year-olds encouraged each climber, and the next, until that shy, timid girl whose mommy probably coddled her a little too much was the last to climb over the up, over, and down bar. She slowly and methodically made her way down as Mrs. Day and a small audience of 5-year-olds who've never been together before cheered her on in celebration. Parents watched in amazement as they witnessed something far greater than just their baby going off to school. This very first day, we were taught such a valuable life lesson that would transcend every classroom, from elementary to middle, from middle to high school, to college, to graduate, to postgraduate. A lesson that would extend to life, to family, to friendship, to hardship, to marriage, to career, to brokenness, to triumph. That sometimes there will be things you must climb up, over, and down to get to what's best. I wish I could go back and interview Miss Day about her philosophy of teaching, about her educational background, get her credentials, make sure she was legit, find out her theory on adolescent development, but she's long gone. I climbed the up, over, and down bar and entered kindergarten 45 years ago. The year was 1968. One of the most unsettling times in American history. The United States was in the middle of the Vietnam War, where thousands upon thousands of young men, some just 13 years older than me and my kindergarten peers, dying every day in battle. It was the same year presidential candidate Robert Kennedy was assassinated. It was the same year that civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on his crusade to bring liberties to minorities. Protests, riots, civil unrest, scandal, and rebellion marked this cultural landscape and served as the entry point for our learning journey of our kindergarten class. Welcome to the world. Yet for some reason, Mrs. Day had enough wisdom and insight to teach a bunch of 5-year-olds a life lesson that would guide us for the rest of our lives. Sometimes there will be things you must climb up, over, and down to get to what's best. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to say tonight. I'd like to say this. First, congratulations for your achievement. It's certainly something to be celebrated and admired, and we hold you in the highest regard. But there's something far greater, this admonition and challenge, that I would much rather give you. There is an off chance that there's a whole group of heroic Mrs. Days sitting in this audience who know, in fact, that they hold the power to actually shape the worldview of students for the rest of their lives. My assumption is that most of you, if not all of you, got into teaching because you felt like you could make a difference. And a few of you got into teaching for the big fat paycheck.
Yeah, right.
Good luck with that. So here's what I'd like to give you. First, 3 lessons that I think Mrs. Day would teach her students. First is this. First lesson would be, it's not about you. Mrs. Day would teach her students, it's not about you. The generation that you will teach has become steeped in narcissism and entitlement. Social media has created this cultural phenomenon that you are the center of your world. 80% of young people want to be a celebrity or think that they are. Students need to be reminded that you don't climb to the top of the mountain so the world can see you. You climb to the top of the mountain so you can see the world. Instilling this value will foster cooperation, understanding, as well as reverse the growing trend of bullying in schools. Teach your students, it's not about you. The second, I believe Mrs. Day would teach her students is this, that there's always a way. There's always a way. Discouragement is one of the greatest roadblocks to development. Most students need to hear teachers say that they can make it. The very words point the way that causes me to believe. I didn't realize until much later in life There was always a way. I can make good grades. I can finish this paper. I can run this lab. I can handle this problem. If the door is locked, find a window. If the window is blocked, find a trap door. If the trap door is blocked, get a sledgehammer and make a new passageway. Sometimes coloring outside the lines helps you see another way. Sometimes thinking outside the box expands your mind. Sometimes the only way is actually the worst way of doing things. Teach your students there's always a way. Third thing I believe Mrs. Day would teach her students: keep doing what you're good at. Keep doing what you're good at. There's something magical about finding your niche. Most people in the world are good at a bunch of things, but great at nothing. For generations, our educational system has taught us that you need to strengthen your weaknesses. I say you need to strengthen your strengths. It's empowering and liberating when you find what you're good at, and you're able to do it again and again and again. The truth is, the U2 singer Bono sucked at math, but he was a genius at singing. And Albert Einstein sucked at singing, but he was a genius at math. Teach your students to find their genius niche and keep doing what you're great at. Along with these lessons that she would teach her students, there's 3 more things I want to give you, lessons that I think Mrs. Day would teach teachers. First is this: 3 things. Mrs. Day would teach teachers that learning styles always trump teaching styles. For many in education, there's a huge difference between teaching and learning. Just because you teach doesn't mean people are learning. The success of your career should never be measured in years or longevity. I grew up with teachers who should have retired, but instead made their lives about their own world and completely missed the real metric of educational success. Did I learn anything? Granted, teaching is a handshake between the educator and the learner, but the role of the teacher is about tweaking, modifying, changing, researching, networking, collaborating in such a way that brings about the greatest success. Learning styles always trumps teaching styles. Second point, second thing Mrs. Day would teach teachers is this: have the courage in teachable moments. It's never a question about what to do if crisis hits. It's what to do